Well, hello and welcome. Thanks for joining this week's panel conversation. I'm really excited that you're able to join us and look forward to the perspectives that are going to be shared by our great panelists that are joining us today. My name is Matt Fulton, and I'm the Vice President of National Engagement for an engagement company named Polco. Today, we're going to be talking about how do you maintain a sense of community in a socially distanced world. We're just simply going to be talking about the challenges that communities are running into in keeping their residents engaged on important topics that are impacting all of their communities as we're all going through this public health pandemic. The overall objective of these sessions is to gather perspectives from government leaders and then to share perspectives with other folks who are experiencing the same kinds of challenges. Here's kind of the format for today's conversation. We'll take a few minutes to introduce the panel, and I'll give a little bit of their backgrounds and then ask them to share a little bit about themselves as well. And then I'll kick off the conversations asking questions about what they're doing to maintain a sense of community in their own environments. And then during the second half of the conversation, we'll see if there's questions for each other or if there's any questions from the audience. It really is to just have a good dialogue about the things that can help us all as local government officials move our communities forward in this kind of strange and unprecedented time that we're all living through. So let me do a little introductions of our panel. Our first panelist is Kelly Corsette, who's the Communication and Public Affairs Director in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's been there for the past decade, although Kelly's been involved in local governments for over 2 decades. In Kelly's current position, he oversees a wide array of important local services, supporting both internal and external communications for the community. Kelly is a Navy veteran, where he served as a surface warfare officer, as well as a public affairs officer. He's a University of Arizona Wildcat graduate, where he earned a master's degree in communication studies. Kelly, would you mind thanks for being here, first of all, but would you mind sharing a little bit more about yourself?
Hello, Matt, and thank you for inviting me. It's certainly my pleasure to join this esteemed panel and look forward to this conversation. I guess the only other thing I could add is my role here in Scottsdale in communications and citizen service comprises our public information officers, our video operations team, and also our citizen service folks who work directly with neighborhoods and residents on programs like Block Watch and neighborhood mediation and those sorts of things. So it's really a pleasure of mine to be able to work in all those different areas. And one of the things that I do get to be involved with when we do it every couple of years is our national community survey. And really excited this year because it'll be our first chance to work with you at Polco. So we're really looking forward to that.
That's great, Kelly. I'm also very interested to hear a little bit more about your neighborhood engagement work. That's always I always find that people are connected most at the neighborhood level, and so going to be excited to hear about that. Our second panelist is Alyssa Cox. Alyssa, thank you for being here. Alyssa is the Deputy City Manager of Civic and Cultural Services in the city of Rancho Cucamonga. Alyssa is responsible for a wide array of extensive, important areas focused on strengthening the organization. One of the things I was particularly interested in your role was your role with Team RC, which is the city's organizational development initiative that emphasizes personal and professional growth. Over the course of her career, Alyssa has been fortunate to gain experience in just such a wide array of public service areas, which I'm sure has been really helpful in your role in the community. As a former ICMA board member, Alyssa, I can say I've been very impressed with seeing your involvement with ICMA. Where you are an advisor and coach and a member of the Assistance Advisory Board. So that's very cool. I was also impressed with the work that you're doing at the state level with the League of California Cities, Cal ICMA. So congratulations on that. It was also really impressive to read in your bio information that you shared that you are an honored alumni from the California State Polytechnic University. So congratulations on that. It's a great resume. But what else would you care to share with us?
Well, I'm very grateful to be asked to be here today, Matt, and excited to join Kelly and Bob in sharing our experiences. First and foremost, I'm just very fortunate to work for such a dynamic organization that really truly believes at its core in engaging with the community and making sure that, we are here and we are truly serving our residents and our citizens and our businesses and keeping them at the front of mind in everything that we do. Feel very, very grateful for the opportunity that I have to serve.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate you being here and kind of stepping in at the last moment like you did. So thank you. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be discussing today. How to maintain a sense of community in a socially distanced world. I kind of come into this conversation thinking about how much disruption has been created in all of our communities, and not only organizationally at a local government level, but just simply for all of our residents. I mean, everything is unsettled and turned upside down. I suspect all of your strategic plans that you have put into place have had to be significantly altered or adapted or adjusted. But honestly, the ability to connect with your residents whose lives have also been disrupted just creates this unique thing that we're all trying to work our way through. And of course, the way that communities are successful is creating an environment where people feel connected, where they feel like their voices are being heard, and where they have opportunities to connect with their decision makers at a local level, just simply for helping to understand and to advance the values and the things that communities do. The pandemic has obviously created all sorts of challenges for maintaining a sense of community. And so the opportunity today is to really hear your perspectives about the creative approaches that you're taking and some of the successes that maybe you have had on how do you do engagement in a meaningful and authentic way that is allowing residents to feel like their voices are being heard and just feeling that connectedness to their community, which is such an important part of just day-to-day living. In the best of times, before the pandemic hit us, engagement was always a challenge. If you think about the challenges that we confront in trying to get people involved in the day-to-day things, a lot of the way that we have done engagement is kind of put up barriers in front of folks. I mean, the meeting schedules and just the bureaucracy that we sometimes find ourselves in creates just logical challenges for people to get engaged and to find meaningful interaction or interconnection with the local government decision makers. And then you throw on a pandemic and turn everybody's life upside down. Now all of a sudden you're socially distanced, you're all operating remotely, you're homeschooling your kids from your house, all of those kinds of things. Staying engaged in the things that are impacting your daily life probably become lower on your priority list, but probably they're much more important just simply because of the critical nature of tying in the needs and the expectations and priorities of your residents to what the things that we do at a local level for advancing and moving your community forward. And so we're coming into this conversation in an already challenging environment, and now with the pandemic, it's even created more challenges. So let's get into the conversation that we want to have with all of you. There's 3 questions that I want to pose to each of you. How has your communication and engagement strategy evolved since the beginning of the pandemic? How does resident engagement influence your success in maintaining a sense of community? And then finally, what tools are you using to measure feedback from residents so that you can get their perspectives during this challenging time? So let's, Kelly, let's start with you on the first question. And tell me a little bit about how Scottsdale's communication and engagement strategy has evolved since the beginning of the pandemic.
Well, thanks, Matt. I think like most communities in the immediate days and weeks after the COVID-19 came down and really started to influence everything that we do, we focused all of our attention on that. What do residents need to do? What do our employees need to do? How are we handling things? We actually had here in Scottsdale, I know our Scottsdale fire crew transported patient number 2 in Arizona back in March. And so we were involved from the very early stages. So I guess what we immediately did was we focused on that topic, of course. We connected immediately with our county public health department to make sure that we were saying the right things, because we're not in the public health business, at least not from an epidemiological standpoint. And we really upped the pace of our communication. So we had a weekly citizen e-newsletter we bumped up to twice a week. We had a weekly employee newsletter, and we created another product, a daily brief for our city employees. And we have been doing daily communication with our employees since probably mid-March, and we maintain it. So I guess in the immediate days and weeks after we realized we were in a pandemic, we upped the pace, we connected with the right people, and that really took over what we were communicating about. Now, it evolved, of course, because it went from this is a new thing, and here are the things we need everybody to do right now, to, okay, this is more of a factor in our lives, and how do we do the other things that we all want to do, or how does the city do the things that we need to do in this environment? And so our communications have evolved to become a mix of public health messaging, but also getting people back into understanding the other things that their government is doing. Our libraries have done a fantastic job pivoting, offering drive-through services, offering curbside pickups, so supporting those sorts of things, while also, frankly, helping people understand the environment that's changing every day. So I think we upped our game significantly in the beginning, and then we have evolved to become more of a, this is our world now, and these are the sorts of things that we will communicate on a regular basis.
Hey, Kelly, a lot of these conversations have focused on the external communication, but can you talk a little bit more about the impact of your daily brief internally and the benefit that provides?
Yeah, sure. Our daily brief has been huge for us. We've got about 2,400 city employees. We're a city of about 260,000 residents, and we're about 184 square miles. So we've got employees spread out across a pretty large area. We have dozens of different facilities. And so we just felt the need to make sure our employees understood what was happening on a regular basis. So that daily brief, it didn't take us long to say, you know what, let's just start doing this every day. And it's not a very technically sophisticated system. It's just an all users email that my communications team puts together every afternoon, and we send out. But we really feel like that's been critical to keeping our workforce plugged into what we expect them to do, what we are expecting the community to do, helping them understand the rules about, hey, if you are exposed, this is what's going to happen. If an employee is exposed, this is how we're going to clean the workspace and notify other employees. And I think after we managed to flatten the curve and get into that mode where we were all pretty happy a couple of months ago, we thought, well, maybe it's time to back off the daily brief. And so we did actually a quick poll among our employees and said, hey, how is this going? And what do you think about maybe we do it 3 times a week? And our employees said, no, we like it. Keep it coming every day. And so that was good feedback from them early on. And we've just continued to do it every day. It primarily focuses on COVID related stuff, but occasionally we'll put some other things in there as well. And then we still do a weekly general employee newsletter in addition to that.
That's just great. Scottsdale has been recognized for its professional management anyways, but I have to imagine that has only elevated the level of trust and support for the work that you're doing externally throughout the community. Alyssa, could you share how your communications and engagement strategy has evolved in Rancho Cucamonga since the beginning of the pandemic?
For sure. Ironically, on March 13th, the day the national emergency was declared due to the coronavirus, I was flying back to California from Washington, D.C. The city manager and I and a couple of council members had been back there, and we had spent the previous day popping in and out of our legislative meetings, trying to determine, what to open, what to close, determine the difference between that fact and that speculation. And, just trying to get our hands around what do we really need to share with the community. I'm sure you all remember the world was in a complete panic at this point. And a little bit, about a year before this, the city had formed what we call our CAN team, our Community Affairs Network, where all of the different community affairs professionals throughout the organizations who at the time worked in individual departments, the idea was to bring them together to collaborate, to support one another, to provide backup support when, things were busier or leaner. And, as we were kind of working on, meeting once a week, every other week, we had created a group in Teams, which at this point was completely underutilized in our organization. But we were really at that point where we were just sharing updates. We really hadn't gotten to that true collaboration. So as I'm on my Southwest flight with my $8 Wi-Fi, trying to, help with the messaging, I was eternally grateful at that point that we were already set up on Teams, because I was able to work with the CAN team on getting the messaging out that we wanted out. And as a side note, my city manager is sitting next to me and looks over and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, how are you getting all this information so quickly?" And I'm like, "This is Teams. It's one of the things that's in our office suite. We've had it for like 2 years and nobody's really used it." And next thing we know, he's downloaded it and, he's created a department head team. And, from that, for our organization, Teams spread like wildfire across our organization, as I know it did in many, many cities across the country. So anyways, as we also don't have our own health department, we were relying on the information and the guidance from the county. Our emergency, as we framed it to our teams, was to keep our essential operations running safely and effectively and supporting our local businesses and our residents in their time of need. And in the midst of all of the panic and all of the fear that was filling up the social and traditional media markets, we made a very deliberate decision to broadcast a message of kindness, of compassion, of hope. We did this relying exclusively on Teams for that internal conversation, and also on our individual creativity, the dedication from this team, all of our teams, and the support that we were able to give one another. All of our messaging that went out was calm, it was reassuring, it was positive, it was supportive. We had hashtag RC community with unity capitalized, and hashtag be kind RC. These were really our mottos going forward. We specifically did not use any big red X's or circles, with things crossed out. And we focused on the immediate needs of the community, but as well, we were very focused on recovery from day one. And what do we need to do now to make recovery later easier or quicker? As a result, we saw a huge increase in our sign up for our e-newsletter. Our followers on social media soared. In the first 6 weeks of the pandemic, we saw our overall impressions increase 150%. We had purpose, we had a collective goal. We were making sure that we were positioning ourselves and our businesses to recover as swiftly as possible, even though it continues to elongate. But I think one of the most meaningful things that happened because of the pandemic, like any good crisis, our CAN team really came together in a way that only a crisis can create and unite. When it came time for budget reductions and reorganizations due to everything and the impacts of the coronavirus, all of those individual community affairs professionals began actually reporting under one division out of the city manager's office. And that team just gelled, and they have since tackled a number of complex community affairs issues and communication issues. And I just couldn't be more proud of them and their response and the growth that I've seen in not only our CAN team, but our organization as a whole in the last 10 months.
Yeah, that's really something. Rancho Cucamonga has always had this reputation of not only for its professional management, but its innovative approaches, its focus on cultural importance. And I love the notion of your positive messaging and just the impact that has on the businesses and residents that you're serving. Have the participation levels that you're seeing, have they continued to be at a higher level now as we're 10 months into this?
Our social media stuff, that's declined a little bit, especially in light of the election and all the different algorithms that go into place. We are seeing record number of participation, though, in some of our other community engagements. For instance, we're in the middle of our general plan update, and we're getting way more input and feedback than we ever had with, the traditional, or in our case, the mixed medias, but the traditional meetings with everybody showing up and asking questions. So we're seeing more engagement in a broad spectrum as opposed to just in one particular area or one social media platform.
Okay.
And that's exciting.
Let's move on to the second question. And Alyssa, I'll start with you. How do you think engagement influences your success in Rancho Cucamonga in maintaining its overall sense of community?
I think engagement is everything in establishing our sense of community here. Especially historically, all local governments, probably all governments, period, have struggled with establishing meaningful engagements and building community through that path, especially when you're working with your marginalized communities. For over a decade here, we've been working to meet residents where they're at, and through an initiative that focuses on health, equity, resiliency, we call it Healthy RC. We created a catalyst not only for enhancing the health and well-being throughout the city, but incidentally, kind of almost on accident, we ended up creating this ever-evolving model for authentic community engagement. And over the years, we've begun and we continue to deploy this throughout the entire city as an agency to our many pockets of residents and micro communities that make up the entire city. So when the pandemic hit, when the stay-at-home orders were first put in place, we knew that letting our community know that we were here to provide reliable information, to continue to provide that sense of place, even if it was virtual, and the assurances that we were focused on maintaining as much normalcy as possible, and that we were doing everything in our power to poise ourselves for successful recovery whenever that might be. We were initially focused on providing the evolving information from the local and state officials and the federal officials and the CDC. But we were able to start incorporating some of that non-traditional outreach opportunities, which included encouraging people to paint rocks and, the kindness rocks and put them throughout the community, and then having a social media event to, take pictures of your rocks and post them. I think somebody else mentioned this, but we had like recreation packs that we were doing surprise deliveries to people that had participated in our recreation community services programs. And there'd be we would draw chalk all over their driveways as a hashtag "You've Been Wrecked." I actually got to go out and do that one day, and it was really fun and rejuvenating. We had a series of the hashtag Be Kind RC videos that starred our community members. So they took videos at home and sent them in to us, and then we incorporated them and sent them back out to the community. We had virtual communities regarding mental health, which we continue to do to this day. We've had larger symposiums and smaller, individual workshops. We've continued our longtime city traditions. We had to cancel our 4th of July fireworks on the 4th because everybody else around us was canceling theirs. And so all of a sudden the herd was, going to come to Rancho Cucamonga. But instead of just canceling it, we did it as a surprise 5th of July, 4th of July fireworks show. And we, live streamed it and recorded it and sent it out. We have a Founders Day parade and a Veterans Day ceremony. We've found ways to make these all are virtual. Maybe one of the most fun and meaningful ones was we participated in the All-America City Award competition this year. And it focused on health and community engagement, like I said, which have long been cornerstones of our organization and our community. And having that and having community members find ways to participate in that process, and then winning and being named 2020 All-America City was really meaningful. Although probably even more meaningful and probably our greatest accomplishment, it's not just all the feel-good stuff, but we distributed, and we are continuing to distribute, over $2 million to over 750 residents and businesses through the CARES Act funding. Rather to keep the money to supplement our dwindling revenues and our operations, we knew that the money would better serve the recovery of our community if that money was going directly to those that were struggling to pay their rent. were struggling to keep their businesses open. So, like any relationship, continuing to show up, being able to provide relief, whether it's comedic relief or financial relief, and continuing to just build that trust and that relationship that keeps us connected to the reason, which is why we're all here, which is, to serve our community.
Yeah. Congratulations on your award. I know that's a rigorous
Thank
process, but honestly, I think that competition and that process, which is community focused, probably helped a lot in kind of promoting that positive messaging that you're doing, and especially when you actually get acknowledged. I really appreciated your comment about the marginalized populations. Can you talk a little bit more about ways that you can have helped those underrepresented groups generally maintain that sense of community in your community?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one really amazing program, and my Spanish is so horrible. It's probably one of my biggest things that I would love to improve about myself. But it's called Community Champions, except in Espanol, which I cannot say the name to save my life. So please forgive me, everybody out there. And our Community Champions program focuses solely on our Spanish speakers. It is made up of those people that don't speak a lot of English, very little. And this group has been around for almost as long as the Health ERC program has been. And they are amazing, and they are dynamic, and they are getting involved and helping change policy. They are, advocating for things in their community. One of the things that they advocated and created some years ago was, really building up the sidewalks in their neighborhood and creating, we were able to partner with them using safe routes to school funding, be able to build up and get, from point A to point B. We've done similar things with parks and putting parks into some of our less park populous neighborhoods. We have something similar with our Health ERC team leaders, again, focusing on that next generation who's got some really amazing hearts and stories. Our team leaders have worked on things like vaping, putting in a vaping ordinance in place here in the city. They have spent a lot of time on mental health and suicide prevention, especially this year, but leading up to this year as well. And so just really, our mantra really is how do we meet our residents where they're at? And to that extent, we are working right now specifically on our community engagement policy with a health equity lens, knowing that the more our community engagement is representative of our community, the longer term health, and not just, active living and healthy eating, but financial health, resiliency, mental health, all of those things will be better in our community. So it's a great focus for our organization.
Yeah, that's just great. Yeah, thank you. Kelly, how has engagement influenced Scottsdale's success in maintaining its sense of community?
It's really about the relationships. Sort of classic crisis communication training would tell you that you need to build those relationships in advance. Because once the crisis is occurring, it's a lot more difficult to connect with people in those meaningful ways. So I think Scottsdale, like a lot of cities, does a very good job day in and day out, month in and month out, to just maintain positive relationships with our community through. We have a number of citizen academies. I think those are not unique to our community. We might have one or two that's unique. We've got a Scottsdale 101 program that we get a lot of people through traditionally to help them learn a little bit more about how their city government operates. Our fire department has an extensive citizen academy. Our police department has an extensive citizen academy. Our water department, a couple of years ago, put together a water citizen academy, and that is always filled up, no pun intended, quickly when they host it, because people are curious to know about how here in the desert, how we can serve a community with safe, clean drinking water, and also how we recycle water to support 50 plus golf courses in our city. So those kinds of programs, I think, are so critical year in and year out to just building a cadre of informed residents who appreciate their community. And then along the lines of what Bob was saying, I think the real value in those sorts of programs is that people meet the professional staff that work for local government. And before I got into local government, I didn't really think twice about it. But ever since I've been here 20 plus years, the caliber of the people who work for local government is just amazing. And there's a popular stereotype about government workers being lazy or not qualified to do anything else. Well, we all know that nothing could be further from the truth. And those every opportunity you have to get your staff connected with the community, so that they might learn a little bit about a specific program or a service, but really what you hope happens is they meet the staff working on their behalf and they really understand, wow, these people really know what they're doing. They're passionate about what they're doing, and they're doing it for me, the resident of this community. So I think really the key is those whatever programs, formal, informal, that help you build relationships with individual residents, with resident groups throughout the year. Those are what really the chickens come home to roost, so to speak, in times like this. And I think all of our communities, certainly on this panel, it sounds like have done a great job with that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the caliber of municipal staff, because I think you're right on. And being able to connect your staff with your residents, and so there's that relationship building aspect that does just make all the difference in the world. And whether it's your appointed staff or whether it's your elected folks, I mean, all of you have talked about those connections, right? It's really being able to put a face to a responsibility. I totally appreciate that. Just a question. What are you doing with your citizen academies right now? Are you doing them virtually?
We have shifted. So the police, fire, water are just not really built for virtual. Our Scottsdale 101 program is a little bit different. So that one we are starting to retool, and we'll be presenting that in a remote video methodology early next year. We also have a series of programs that we put on called Neighborhood College. And traditionally, those are, they started as HOA education programs. We have a lot of HOA communities here in our city. And so we put those programs together to help HOA board members understand how they can connect with the city and really the rules that apply to them and how they can better manage their own individual communities. In the last couple of years, we have expanded that program to be beyond nuts and bolts HOA information, and also add in some wouldn't you like to know this about your community content. So we have a gentleman on my staff who's a historian and has put together a series of history lectures about our community that fill up as fast as we offer them. Huh. And so pre-COVID, he would easily pack 100+ people into an auditorium to learn about tales from the files of the Scottsdale Police Department and those sorts of things. Well, that was pretty easily pivoted to a Zoom environment. So we have been offering those. They've been filling up similarly, and they've continued to help connect people in the community that just really want to take 45 minutes of their time and learn a little bit more about their city. And that has worked very well.
Oh, I think that's very cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's a great point. Let's shift on to the third question. What tools are you using in Scottsdale to help you measure feedback from residents?
Matt, we use a number of things. A lot of them are not necessarily would give us a statistical or real hard quantitative data on a regular basis. But we use a system called Zen City, which helps us understand and be aware of conversations that are occurring online on any public-facing platform. And that system will flag conversations based on the volume of the conversation, and also uses artificial intelligence to give us a sense at least of how that is trending. And in a number of cases, it's helped us look at some things and understand where maybe our communications are not being as clearly received as we hope. And so it helps us dial in a little bit more and realize, hey, that's an area that we need to address, or that's a topic we should cover more routinely. So that's something that we use on a regular basis. It's a system that operates 24/7. So I can hop in there whenever I need to and take a look at what the discourse of the day is looking like. And that's very helpful in our community. And we also are doing a lot of engagements that we would have traditionally done probably in person. We have shifted over to an online model, and a couple of examples with some major capital projects that are still moving forward. We have leveraged our website, and we haven't made a ton of investment in online engagement platforms per se, but we have built some things ourselves and have allowed our residents to review materials, ask questions, submit comments on some bid projects. And that's something that helps us understand how people are feeling about some things that we're doing. Similar to Rancho Cucamonga, we're also updating our general plan. And our long-range planning staff are rock stars in this area and have leveraged a citizen review committee who has been meeting via Zoom, really also built in an online review and feedback component, because all of that material would be put together, and the council is expected next year to take a draft general plan to the voters, which is something that's required here in Arizona. And that's something that we expect to occur later in the year. And then Scottsdale has always done a community-wide citizen survey. We do it about every 2 years. For longer than a decade, we have partnered with the National Research Center, and I know they have a new name, and the survey at one time was called the National Citizen Survey. Now it's called the National Community Survey. So that is actually in the field as we speak, and that is a random sample of 1,700 households that will get us some statistically valid data. The survey is essentially the same every 2 years, so we get some longitudinal data that we can use, and it's also the same survey that's conducted in hundreds of communities around the country, so that we can get some benchmarking data there as well. And the last thing I'll say about that is we also, once the random sample survey has an opportunity to run for a couple of months, then working with Polco, which will be new for us and we're very much looking forward to, we will offer an online version of that survey and get that out to the entire community, so that all of our residents will have an opportunity to take the same survey, tell us what they think, and then we'll be able to use that information as well, compare it against the statistical information we get from the random sample, and will definitely give us some information that we routinely use to make decisions at the council and at the staff level.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Are you using that data? Are you embedding that into then your performance measures in your strategic plan?
Yes, we have a number of our organizational strategic plan in a number of different areas, specifically taps the data that we receive through that survey and through some other means. So, and it will likely give us some other data points that might advise staff and the council to place some new strategic priorities in our plan as well.
Okay, very cool. Great, thanks. Alyssa, what tools are you using in Rancho Cucamonga for measuring resident feedback during COVID-19?
Yeah, one of the first ones we used was FlashVote, which is a statistically valid survey tool. It pops up the 5 questions that go out to the community, and I want to say 24, 48 hours later, the answers go back to anybody that participated as well as to the city. And so we were asking questions on, what are you concerned about? Are you getting our messages? What would you like the information on? Keeping in line with that same goal of keeping everybody calm and informed with, factual information. As I've noted, our messages and communication is really focused on that well-being and how do we go into recovery. We've received quite a bit of feedback through comments and direct messages on social media. We also did a lot of those little informal polls via, Facebook and Instagram, and, just a one-off, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? What do you like about this? What do you like about that? I'm like everybody, and I know Kelly for sure mentioned, the Zoom meetings and being able to get some of that, face-to-face virtual feedback. But I think one of the things that surprised all of us was how beneficial the Zoom chat feature has been in our public meetings, and how many more people have participated because they could just type in their thought or their question, as opposed to actually having to, raise their hand or, be part of that larger using my actual voice communication. Something that we've invested in since COVID started was publicinput.com. We had been looking into it for a while, and it's been instrumental in our engagement tools, especially as pertains to our general plan. We were able to do some really neat visual surveys and have people comment on how they liked various streets and buildings, and how we continue to build out that built community. One of the things that I really like about public input is it also gives you the opportunity to put all of the engagement that you're getting from various, whether it's in person or the virtual meeting or surveys, and be able to look at all of the data together in one place. They've even got a feature that if you putting your survey out via paper, which we do for those areas and those people that don't necessarily have broadband and are just relying on cell phone signal for their online experience, they can do paper surveys, and we can incorporate that into the data. And then something we were working on pre-COVID, but has been completed and we are slowly, very carefully launching, is our RC Connect van. And it's just, a 12, passenger, van that anybody can drive with, a regular driver's license. It's been wrapped and added some enhancing features to it so that we can take it out into the community to talk to people. Like I said, we're slowly trying to figure out how to do that. And we've used it in 2 or 3 instances since COVID, using tables as 6-foot, dividers, and making sure everybody's been masked and providing hand sanitizer and all of that. Because, at the end of the day, there really just isn't anything like that person to person and that face-to-face contact. To that, nothing like the real thing. One of the things we've also really realized that we can't just rely on social media and all of that. We pick up the phone a whole heck of a lot more than we had been, and probably as much, if not more, than what we should have been doing. Because again, there's nothing like that person-to-person direct contact, and you just don't always able to get that through our internet and social media.
Let me ask you each just one additional question, and we'll start with you, Alyssa, since you're up. Are your council meetings still operating in a remote fashion, and what is the council thinking about long term in terms of their operations going forward?
Our city council has continued to meet in person this entire time. We have taken extraordinary measures to make sure that everybody stays safe and connected. The public is not allowed into the chambers. They can call in to do their public comments. We're broadcasting it on both television and on the internet. But our planning commission has been meeting virtually via Zoom. So for us, it was more of a body by body decision and what was going to work best for each group. I'm sure you've heard California is under another lockdown order. So as long as this stay-at-home order is in place, we will for sure be continuing the way we're doing. We're just continually looking to see what the different indicators are until it's safe to allow the public back in and be able to operate together, like in a fashion similar to once was.
Okay, thanks. Kelly, what are you doing in Scottsdale?
We started meeting remotely via Zoom and went through a lot of technical research to make that work. But then our council, I think much like Alyssa pointed out, there's no real substitute for being in the same room together. So for quite a while now, our council has been meeting in person. But the way Scottsdale City Hall is a historic building, opened in 1968. And so our public meeting space is not set up very conducively to letting our council be physically separated, as of course they have to be. while also having members of the public in. We just really don't have room to do it. So we've been in this hybrid model where the council is meeting in person. We've had to move them off the dais down onto the floor, special meetings set up. And then the public can watch the meetings, and for a while was limited to only submitting their comments electronically. But since for about the past couple of months, we have set up a kind of a radio call-in feature, sort of like a radio talk show. So members of the public who want to comment, want to state their comment verbally to the council, we've set up a system so they can come into the Zoom meeting and they can do that. And that's one of those things where I think even if and when the world returns to some sense of normalcy, we will probably say, hey, that's not a bad way to allow more people to participate in a meeting rather than having to drive to City Hall, which in our city, which is a very long, tall city, driving to City Hall could be a 25, 30-mile trip for some people in our community. So that's the way we've been doing it. Ideally, we'd like to be back to welcoming the public back in the building, but we're still, I think, a ways away from that.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay, thanks all of you. Do any of you have any questions for each other?
I'll ask Alyssa about your RC Connect van. That's something that we've been looking at as well. Obviously, a little tricky now, as you stated, since meeting in person is difficult to do. But I'm curious how that came together and what sorts of things you're hoping to use it for.
Well, the idea, I think the idea has been out there for a while. We have a full trailer, that was some years ago outfitted to do this similar thing, except for that it requires a special driver's license. It requires, advanced planning and making sure that we can park it and staff it. And so it just really wasn't getting utilized. And I believe it was actually at one of the Alliance's conferences that somebody had presented it, and our team came back and said, hey, we think this would be a really great idea. We can take one of the old, vans that we're not using very much anymore and refit it. And so we said, give it a shot. Let's see what it does. So it really, we had thought we would use it a ton for our general plan update and going out into the pockets of the community. Obviously that has not happened. So the idea is that any department can take it out. It's got magnetic signs on, that can put out. So whoever's out working on whatever engagement they are, they can put those up. We can make additional ones if it's a special project like the general plan update or All America Cities or something. And the idea again is really to just get out and meet the residents where they're at, and whether it's a Little League game and soccer games on the weekend, or as school's getting out, or just being able to be in the community in the summer at the park and being able to share whatever might be going on. We hope once we can get out and really do that community in-person engagement again, that we could foresee it being used every week, multiple times, just with the number of programs and things that we have going on.
Well, it sounds really great. Thank you. I'll be following on your social media to see how it goes.
Excellent.
This has been a great panel. I really appreciate all your perspectives. Some of my big takeaways are the person-to-person contact and the importance of that. Being creative, being nimble. Alyssa, your comment on the positive messaging. I think that, our research has shown that trust in local government has actually increased during COVID. And I think it's in large part, getting back to Kelly's comment, on just the caliber and the quality of service delivery that local governments can provide. And it all feeds into this issue of creating a place where people want to be, and feeling that connectedness. Your ideas and your perspectives, I think, are going to be very welcomed by the others that participate in or pick this up and listen to it. So thank you very much for spending the time. I'm going to follow up with each of you, and I'll provide you contact information for each of you so that you can connect with each other if you like, and get the Citizen Academy outline if you want. As well as I would certainly welcome any feedback that any of you have on these panel conversations. We're always trying to improve them. We hold them weekly, and so we are trying to learn as many perspectives as we can. But I am interested in getting your feedback, and we will share these recordings with all of you so that you can share these conversations with all your social markets as well, or however you can communicate it. So thank you very much for spending the time today, and I hope to keep in contact with all of you. Good luck with everything that you're doing.